Global, leading Britain's conversation, the Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald. And, well, big news to come from the States very shortly, where Trump is going to announce within the next day or so the biggest tax cuts in US American history. They are going to be huge. But we'll wait for those. Meanwhile, we'll talk about the Home Office in the United Kingdom, who are putting in place a policy, which is that people who get granted refugee status in this country will now take part in a safe return review 5 years after their refugee status is granted. So what that means is, if you apply to be a refugee in the United Kingdom, and last year about 35,000 people did, of whom 50% were actually granted refugee status, 50% who weren't. But I'm talking tonight purely about those who were actually granted refugee status. And what's going to happen from now on with new Home Office guidelines is, rather than being granted automatic rights of residency after 5 years, there will be a safe return review to see whether the country from which they've come is now a safe place to return to. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of organisations, in fact 50 in all, across the UK, who work with refugees, have written to the Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, telling her to reverse this policy because they say it's beyond basic morality. The Home Office, in response, have said they can't comment because of PERDA rules, because there's an election going on. Didn't stop them during the referendum, did it? But there we are. So that's the situation. And there are lots and lots of groups. There's Black Lives Matter. There's the Northern Ireland Community of Refugees and Asylum Seekers, the Scottish Refugee Council, Migrant Voice, Space for You Cardiff, Manchester Migrant Solidarity, Calais Action. There's 50 different groups have written to the Home Secretary to say this is beyond basic morality. Well, I guess in many ways this debate tonight is more about morality, indeed, than it is about politics. Although, of course, if the Labour Party were to win the general election with a big majority, perhaps they might reverse this. I don't know. But I'm asking you, is it beyond basic morality to conduct a safe return review for refugees who've been here for 5 years if their original country is now safe? So if you think that this is absolutely wrong, that it would give refugees no certainty, they wouldn't be able to integrate, then call me on 0345 6060973. If you think what on earth could be wrong with this, especially if where they've come from is safe, then text me on 84850.
Caller not ready.
If you think actually, really, other countries should be doing a bit more of the heavy lifting, then you can always tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, as ever, you can watch this show live on LBC's Facebook page, where I am here live from Brussels, where today we've had Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary in the Parliament, who has been called virtually all the names under the sun because he won't sign up to the European Union's, or Mrs. Merkel's, you might argue, migrant refugee policy. So this whole issue of refugees, asylum seekers, and failed asylum seekers continues to dominate politics. Now, 50% of those who apply for refugee status in the United Kingdom are denied that status. And one of the big arguments in this country and elsewhere is so many of those who are denied refugee status actually don't leave. In fact, probably only 1 in 4 of those who are failed refugees in the United Kingdom actually get returned anywhere. But tonight's debate is about people where we as a country say, do you know what? Where you've come from is so completely awful, we're going to grant you refugee status. The change is that after 5 years, rather than you automatically having the right to stay forever and the option to become a UK citizen, we're going to have a look to see if the place you've come from is safe or not. I have to say, from my perspective, this strikes me as being a pretty sensible thing. Who's to say? Maybe, let's hope, God willing, in 5 years' time, Syria is going to be a safe place for people to go back to. I'm sure we'll get strong views both ways on this. I'm going to start by asking David in Enfield, is it beyond basic morality to conduct a safe return review for a refugee? David, good evening.
Good evening. No, it's not. If a country is safe now after 5 years, what's going to happen to their economy if everybody's left? It's their duty to make their country better once they get back to it. Once they get back to a safe country.
Yes, I think that's a perfectly reasonable point, David. I guess the counter-argument is that it means that people who've come here and they've settled down and they've got a job, would they have a sort of slight sort of Damocles hanging over them when this 5-year review comes up?
No. If their country is now safe and it's all running smooth and they still want to stay here, that makes them economic migrants. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah. Okay, David, I think you've just made a very, very strong point, and I thank you. And on text I get, Nigel, a refugee should, by definition, return when possible. Otherwise, they're actually immigrants, says Comrade in Cheltenham, very much backing up the point that David from Enfield has made. This is the right approach. Refugee status should not be an automatic route to eventual citizenship, comes in on Twitter. Another tweet, I think it's a very reasonable thing to do, provided that it is safe. Thomas in Fulham is my next caller. Thomas, what do you think? I mean, are we being unreasonable to say to people that after 5 years, we might say, you've had a great time, but it's time to go back from where you came from because now it's safe?
No, I think it's a good idea because some people may wish to, but not have the funds, the means, or the know-how to do it. But more so, most of the ones that are coming over that are claiming refugee are flocking over to men. So why wouldn't these men fight for their country to begin with, as well as go back and like you said, the economy? Somebody's got to go back there and rebuild the country. Who's going to do that if they're all fleeing and staying in whatever country they go to?
Well, Thomas,
in particular Britain, because we're a soft touch.
One of the things, Thomas, I've been struck by, and when you see these pictures, and certainly we saw them, in late 15 and early 16, during what I call the Merkel madness, what we saw were 70% of people who were coming were young males. And I thought to myself, Thomas, well, what about the women? What about the children? What about the pensioners? Surely, actually, in some ways, these young men were actually deserting them, weren't they? And surely, if it's safe, there's no argument to say they shouldn't go back.
Nigel, I think, why don't they say, look, a pensioner, you'd say, look, we're going to ask you because obviously you've got an option. And if you don't want to, that's fine because of your age. And children who are settled in school, fine. But again, we both know that like 70% or even more are male, young. Why the hell wouldn't they go back? They've got no real reason to stay here. And when you look at all the problems we've got with the National Health Service, with housing and everything else, yes, we need other people to help us, and to help themselves because it is economic. But there's just too many people flooding in there. This country now, wherever you go, especially in the bigger cities, it doesn't look like London. It doesn't feel like London. In fact, it feels like, it feels unsafe. That's how I feel.
Well, Thomas, I get your point about cultural change and about huge numbers coming to Britain. But to be fair on this, the number of people actually applying for asylum is, as I say, about 35,000 a year, which is actually, a small amount of net migration into Britain every year. Sure, it's part of the numbers, but no, Thomas, perfectly reasonable point Thomas makes, that actually those communities need their able young men back with them. Jeff in Redditch, good evening. What do you think? Is it,
Good evening, Nigel.
Is it beyond basic morality?
Well, from my point of view, it seems to me we have a bureaucracy at work where when people apply for asylum in the country, you're either accepted or you're not accepted. If you're accepted, it seems to me you want to build a future here. And at 5 years, if you want to go back where you've come from, that seems to be your choice as far as I'm concerned. You don't need another bureaucracy going over something you've already gone over and approved. Although people say these places are going to be safe, are they going to be safe? We don't know, but isn't that down to the individual who we've approved as actually having asylum status?
Well, Jeff, the point that was made earlier was that in many cases people might not have the financial means or the know-how to go back, so we as a government would help them. I guess the real question, Jeff, is should there be an element of compulsion from the British government, or should the option be given to those that have come?
I think the option should be given to those that come because they've already approved their status, and there should be no compulsion whatsoever, because that's just bureaucracy again. And we all know that when bureaucracy steps in, strange decisions get made. And I would like to think if I went to somewhere and had been accepted, and after 5 years, I think I might have had a wife, I think I might have had some children, I think they might be in school, and I think I might be happy where I am. If my country's sort changed, I always realise that people have an allegiance in their own inner selves for their own country, and they will naturally go back if things are okay. I don't see why we have to compel people to do things. If we help them, that's another matter.
No, Jeff, your point that people may well have put down roots, as you say, perhaps got married, had kids, is a very, very powerful counter-argument. I'm going to ask Olivia in Bristol how she feels about this great debate.
Hi, yeah, I think there's quite a big concern about refugees having a time limit of 5 years. It's quite a short time, and one problem we've seen from Germany and Sweden is that the culture clashes can have quite legal problems. We've had problems of rape, sexual assault. If there's a 5-year limit, they won't adapt to our culture, which could cause problems of them living there short term. They might not feel the need to adapt so well.
But Olivia, how long, I mean, you talk about rape and you talk about all these things, how long should we as the host country be prepared to put up with this sort of behaviour? Or should we not be prepared to put up with it at all?
I do think we should think about whether we should put up with it at all. And as you said earlier, Nigel, maybe think about the women and the children, people who are like in real need to be protected.
Yes, well, I think that too. And yet, Olivia, I'm struck again and again, whether it's the camps at Calais, which have now been closed and they moved to Dunkirk, or whether it's those coming through borders in the Balkans, I'm struck again and again and again that it's 70% young males. That, I think, Olivia, is at the root of this problem, isn't it?
Definitely, Nigel.
And would you have qualms, though? Would you have qualms about the government being able to do this using compulsion?
No, because I do feel the idea of a refugee is that we're providing them a temporary, short escape from the turmoil in their own country. I mean, surely we can't just let them stay indefinitely. I mean, there's got to be some future plan of how we can recover our economy, how we can afford this. I mean, it's not just there's not just unlimited funds of taking care of people for indefinite years.
Olivia, thank you. Olivia makes the point that we're providing safe haven. Once there is no more need for that safe haven, what is the problem, particularly with those young men going back to countries where they've left behind children, women and the elderly to help them rebuild their societies? Right now, you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, live from Brussels, and it's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Great stuff.
And Conservative MP for South West Surrey, Jeremy Hunt. But let's talk about the plans from the Labour Party. A pay rise for the staff, that'll go down well.
I think everyone would like to give NHS staff a pay rise. They do a fantastic job. So the real choice for the NHS is which party is going to give us the good result from Brexit, the strong economy that means that we can put that extra funding in and pay our nurses and doctors and everyone the kind of pay increases that we would all want.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hilton by Hilton, now open in Aberdeen.
Hi guys, I got the coughs there a bit, I'm sorry.
Did you hear that? Exclusive online discounts for flights to Canada are calling. Book before April 30th.
Nigel, just to let you know, Facebook Live is still live a minute, okay? You're on camera.
Oh, fine. No, I'm sorry, I got the coughs a bit there. But,
No, that's fine. It's just that you're not... We can't hear you, but I can now see you just looking at the laptop.
Sure.
Book online before April.
I'm just finding out why.
Doesn't matter, but...
Okay, sure.
Your Canadian home.
You know what? It keeps them gripped.
Confused about PPI? At PPI Hotline, we want to give you the facts. There is absolutely reason to check you had PPI. Even if you think you never have, we can help you.
So if you scroll down a bit, there are some Facebook messages there as well.
Deadline. We just need the name of the bank you've had loans or credit cards with, and we'll check for free. So find out now if you're owed by texting WIN to 83222.
Yeah, there's a couple you can clear off there, isn't there?
The top
two
text.
The top two can go.
Unlimited BT Infinity is broadband like no other. because you'll get the UK's most powerful Wi-Fi signal versus major broadband providers. That's on top of super fast speeds of up to 52 megabits. And when you're out and about, you'll get free access to over 5 million Wi-Fi hotspots. Oh, we'll also give you a welcome discount of over 25%. Unlimited BT Infinity. Broadband like no other. Visit bt.com/connect.
New customers, 12-month term. Subject to availability, minimum line speed. Terms apply. Over 25% discount versus existing customer standard price. To verify, see bt.com/smarthub.
Traffic in Waterloo or crossing King's Cross like a king. If you're powering past Battersea or flying down to Canary Wharf. When you're going like the Clappers to Clapham or want to get to Seven Sisters in one tap. At My Taxi, we're always looking for ways to improve our service and yours. So you can breeze down the bus lane safe in the knowledge that if your cab is black, this app always has your back. My Taxi, the black cab app.
Love your skin, love your hair, love your nails. Perfectil delivers nutritional support from within, including zinc, to help you maintain normal skin, hair and nails. Perfectil, the science of beauty, from Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company. From Boots, pharmacies and Vitabiotics.com.
Here at the Claims Guys, we'd like to offer this assurance to anyone worried by the deadline on PPI claims. There is still time to make your claim. Our experts will work fast to discover if you were ever sold PPI. And once we've completed your free PPI check, you can then pursue your own claim or let us do it for you. It's your choice. Even if you can't find any paperwork, just text the word EASY to 60777 and let the Claims Guys do the rest. Text EASY to 60777 now.
The Claims Guys.
This is LBC, live from Brussels. The Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Go. So the Home Office are, I suppose you could say, getting tough. They're redefining the rules and they're saying, look, if we grant you refugee status and, you know, it's accepted, after 5 years, before you get the automatic right to stay and settle in this country, we're going to have a look and see whether the place you've come from is now a safe place to return to. And whilst that all seems perfectly reasonable, there are 50 groups, and it has to be said, many of them funded by the taxpayer, others funded through charities, who say this policy is beyond basic morality, because people need the opportunity to put down roots, to feel safe, secure, and to integrate. And indeed, Jeff from Redditch made the point, well, you could have been here 5 years, you might have got married, had kids, and settled down. A perfectly reasonable point that Jeff made, but most people saying, no, actually, you know, if we give sanctuary, if the place from which they've come is now safe and secure, surely those people, and mostly, by the way, young men, should go back to help people back in their own country. And an absolute avalanche of text, tweets and Facebook messages. Nigel, asylum seeking has been a short way cut of getting into Western nations by uneducated and unskilled people from third world nations for many years. So a review after 5 years seems a jolly good idea, says Anton in Tooting. If the country the refugee originally came from is deemed safe after 5 years, then they must be sent back, says Ian from Buck. So he believes in compulsion. Others think perhaps it should be an option. Refugees, they should go back to their own country, says Joe in London. Well, Joe, I'd qualify that by saying that the Home Office are saying only if it's a safe thing to do. Valentina on Facebook says, in the eyes of much of the UK public, the terms refugee, asylum seeker and migrant have almost blurred into one. This is far from the truth and far from helpful. Valentina, I completely understand the point you're making. Troy says it isn't normal to let anyone come in and stay. Ian says there wouldn't be so many refugees if we didn't get involved in their business. And I think what Ian's referring to is the Iraq war and the Libya war, and there's no question we have made the situation more difficult for ourselves. But are the Home Office being reasonable in saying that after 5 years, if they deem the country you've come from is safe, that you should then go back there, having enjoyed our hospitality, our comfort and our safety for 5 years? And I'm going to ask Sally in Chessington that very question. Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry, I'm Barry. I'll just pass you over to Sally. Here she is.
Right, okay.
Hello, Nigel. How are you?
Sally, hello. Gosh, you've got somebody doing the phones for you. That's marvellous. Now, Sally, tell me, what do you think? What do you think?
I am actually here to represent white and English-speaking refugees because I myself am one.
Yep.
Do you have a problem with people like me?
Well, explain, Sally, where you came from.
I came from Australia. I sought asylum in England from Australia 5 years ago. Do you not want people like me in your country? Yes.
And what were your grounds, Sally, for seeking asylum?
Do you not think that people from Australia can seek asylum? Because what about Julian Assange?
I'm just trying to think about this for a moment. So you come from Australia, which the last time I looked was a highly civilized country that wasn't persecuting minorities on the basis of their religion, their race, their political point of view. No, Sally, I love Australia, and I welcome the fact that with Brexit, our countries will become closer. But you don't qualify, Sally, for refugee status on any grounds at all, do you?
That is not true at all. No, absolutely not. Do you understand what a refugee? Do you understand what a refugee has to qualify as? Because how do you know I haven't been persecuted? Australia doesn't support same-sex marriage, does it? Can refugees come on that?
Right. Well, actually, if you look at the 51 definition of a refugee, the bounds certainly could extend to sexual orientation and people being persecuted for their sexual orientation. That is true. But I would suspect, Sally, I could be wrong, but I wonder how many of the 35,000 refugee claims last year were from Australia. Probably somewhere between zero and 1 would be my guess. How about yours?
My guess would be not many. Although, as I said, Julian Assange and myself stand out as celebrity refugees in England.
Well, Sally, I think Julian Assange is a little bit of an exception. And Sally, whilst you've had great fun with this call, I think there may be other people with more valid points to make. That's my view. I'm going to go to Chris in Fulham. Chris, tell me. Is it? I can't get over that last call, but there we are. Don't tell me you're an Australian too. Please don't do that to me.
I'm still laughing.
Well, I know, I'm struggling a bit too. So what we've got here, Chris, we've got 50 different refugee groups saying that it is beyond basic morality to conduct a safe return review after 5 years. What do you think?
Right. Well, let me put you straight about myself first. First of all, I support wholeheartedly the idea of safe sanctuary for refugees.
Okay.
Secondly, I support wholeheartedly more investment into the camps closer to the home countries, rather than bringing everybody over here that we haven't had any security checks on and we don't know what's going on. Thirdly, the idea of a 5-year review is an excellent idea, and I would like it to be retrospective, because I know people that have come here, claimed asylum on different grounds, have been given a council property, are claiming benefits, but go home to their country of origin every year for a holiday to see their family. Now, and that can easily be checked by passport control. We have been a soft case for far too long. I would help anybody that was genuine, that needed the help. But even you play it down, Nigel, 50% of the people that are coming here are from the African nations. They're not from the Middle East. They're from Eritrea, Nigeria, Morocco, Algiers,
Somalia, Sudan, Ethiopia. No. You're absolutely right. I mean, Chris, I think the point you're making actually is a really important one, which is no country in Europe has ever had a bigger heart to genuinely help people who were in trouble. We've always done this, but frankly, our government have been so weak, particularly with failed asylum seekers, by making sure they don't go back. And as you point out, some have even been granted refugee status and then have frankly taken the mickey out of it, that I think we've kind of lost a bit of that good-heartedness because we feel it's being abused. I mean, look at the child refugees that we let in from Calais. Do you remember that? I mean, someone that was 6'5" who would have made good prop forwards and were shaving. And I just think there is this feeling, Chris, that frankly the whole thing's been abused. If it was cleaned up, I think we'd be as generous as any country, don't you?
Even people that hold much stronger views than I do on refugees or immigration, I think even they would be more prone to being generous to helping the people that are really in need. But because none of us go to bed at night sleeping well, thinking that people are taking liberties.
Yeah. No, Chris, your point, very powerful. We feel we've had the mickey taken out of us, and because of that, our hearts are not as open to this question as they used to be. I absolutely agree with that. I'm going to ask Natalia in Edinburgh how she feels about this issue. Natalia, good evening.
Oh, hello, Nigel. It's the first time I'm phoning, and I'm a foreigner, so please bear with me. It's a bit difficult for me to talk over the phone. All right. So I see the logic of the Home Office, and I think I know why, the initiative was, published and why people try to do this, because, limiting, the 5-year limit probably would kind of make the country a bit less attractive for people Chris mentioned and some other callers mentioned before. I only have one concern, and it's not even a concern. I just have one question. It's, when it says it's safe enough to return, so after 5 years, so who is going to assess that it's safe to return?
Well,
that
of course. No.
What are the criteria?
Natalia, I get that. And that, of course, would have to be, to some degree, a subjective judgment made by the Home Office in this country. Natalia, I understand and get that criticism, and there is a great degree of subjectivity about it, and I thank you very much for your call. And, it all seems very logical, doesn't it? Very logical that actually we provide safe haven, we make sure the whole thing's done properly, and after 5 years it's perfectly reasonable that people go back to where they came from if it's safe. But Jeff from Redditch touched me a little bit in the first half of this show, and a tweet that comes in here that says refugees must not be allowed to marry, start having children with native Brits in order to get residency, or would the partners have to leave too? So there we are. This is not straightforward. It's not easy, but I do actually think, on the whole, the Home Office do appear to be trying to clean up a system that the vast majority of us have lost total confidence and respect for. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, live from Brussels. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Rupert Barcia.
The Liberal Democrats have banned a former MP from running in June's election after he was accused of anti-Semitism. David Ward's conduct was raised in Parliament following an interview on LBC this morning. Theresa May says Jeremy Corbyn is simply not up to the job of running the country ahead of June's election. The Labour leader, meanwhile, has accused Mrs May of failing to stand up for the weakest in society during her term as Prime Minister. And West Ham and Newcastle United's grounds have been raided as part of an investigation into football tax fraud. Several people have been arrested. LBC weather. Any showers dying out overnight. Frosty in the south, more mild further north. A low of 3 Celsius. Tomorrow, patchy rain moving to most areas. A high of 12 degrees.
LBC Travel, good evening. I'm Andy Lake. Starting off in Surrey then, and there's still delays on the M25 anti-clockwise from junction 9 for Leatherhead through to 5 for the M26 after a collision earlier on. All lanes are back open now, but 2 lorries have just collided. They've been moved onto the hard shoulder, but it's still queuing on the approach there. Into London, the A40 is solid. That's westbound because of a collision between the Polish War Memorial and Hillingdon Circus, which is closed to lane. Delays there back to the Greenford flyover. Elsewhere in London, the northbound approach to the Blackwall Tunnel is queuing from just after the Sun in the Sands roundabout in Greenwich after a bus broke down much earlier on. In West Yorkshire, the M62 has a lane closed eastbound between junctions 27 and 28. A car's caught fire after an oil spillage and it saw the road closed. It is now back open partially, but still looking very slow. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
Selco Builders Warehouse is much more than just a builder's merchant, and we've just opened a new branch in Crayford, London. With huge stocks of of timber, building materials, plumbing, electrical, decorating, kitchens and bathrooms, tools, and much, much more on the shelf. Selco is stacked to the rafters with thousands of trade price products ready to take away same day. But don't just take our word for it, see it for yourself. Selco Builders Warehouse, now open in Kennet Road, Crayford, London.
Get it straight from Selco.
Here at the Claims Guys, we'd like to offer this assurance to anyone worried by the deadline on PPI claims. There is still time to make your claim. Our experts will work fast to discover if you were ever sold PPI. And once we've completed your free PPI check, you can then pursue your own claim or let us do it for you. It's your choice. Even if you can't find any paperwork, just text the word EASY to 60777 and let the Claims Guys do the rest. Text EASY to 60777 now.
The Claims Guys.
Here's another true story from Aldermartin, Baines and Cuthbert. When fire tore through a residential London development in 2015, the local health and safety executive were quickly on the scene. Fortunately, ABC had all the right health and safety paperwork and certificates, and to the great relief of the building's owners, were able to prove there was no fault. No fuss, no hassle. For block management, ABC Estates will give your story an ending that'll make you as happy as Larry. Find out more at abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
Welcome to London's exquisite Indian dining experience, Marla Restaurant. The finest North Indian cuisine in the most charming setting. Find us in the heart of one of London's divine hidden gems, St Catherine's Dock. Marla Restaurant. Visit us in St Catherine's Dock or go to marlarestaurant.co.uk.
Marla. Discover a jewel in London's secret paradise.
Hello to spring markets booming with laughter and jokes that leave you smiling days after. Say hello to something new today at helloyoudating.com.
And relax. It's Trustatrader. Blooming lovely tradespeople who do the job right. Visit trustatrader.com.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from Brussels, only on LBC.
A comment earlier was that we confuse the terms these days, migrants, refugees and failed asylum seekers, and it's all a hodgepodge and very confusing and doesn't do a lot of good, and I agree with that. But here's something from Germany. The crime rate among migrants in Germany rose by more than 50% last year, according to new figures that have raised real concerns about what may happen in the elections later this year. The number of suspected crimes by refugees, asylum seekers and illegal immigrants rose to 174,000 in 2016, an increase of 52.7%. These figures coming directly from the German Interior Ministry. This is not something to gloss over, Thomas de Maizière, the Interior Minister, said. Those who commit serious offences here have forfeited their right to stay. Crimes by migrants, he said, had increased disproportionately, even when the huge influx into Germany under Merkel's open-door refugee policy was taken into account. He also did make the point that most of the crimes committed are by repeat offenders, and that just 1% of migrants were accounting for 40% of migrant crimes, and that's pretty important. The highest crime rate were among migrants from the Balkans, Morocco, Algeria and the former Soviet Union, none of whom, of course, in reality, should ever be applying for asylum in Germany. When it came to sexual crimes, the figures were pretty astonishing, I think, and the rate figures were that 68% of all group rapes in Germany last year were committed by foreigners. Similarly, Islamic-inspired crime rose by 14%, and violent far-right crime rose by 14% as well. I'm not going to make any comment on those figures other than to say it is not a particularly pretty picture, and perhaps when you look at that, you understand some of the debates that are going on in Europe right now. But what we're talking about tonight are people who have come, applied for refugee status in the United Kingdom and been granted it. Not the illegals, but people who have been granted it. And what the Home Office is saying is that they want a new refugee return policy if the country these people came from is safe. And many of you, like me, think it's absolutely sensible, particularly as 70% of young men, that they go back to countries that are now safe and help to rebuild them. Others have made the point, well, what happens if in that 5 years they've put down roots in this country? I wonder what Jeff in Salford makes of this debate.
Hello, Nigel, you okay?
Good evening. I'm very well indeed, thank you. So what do you think, Jeff? Is it a reasonable policy or not?
Now, I'm not your biggest fan, I'm not going to lie. Now, I'm going to ask you this. What gives you the right to say that after 5 years, when a refugee has come to our country, that they should go back home?
Well, nothing, Jeff, gives me the right to say it. And let's just get this debate correct. This is what the Home Office are proposing for the future, OK? And you know, a lot of people think that, I mean, you know, as someone says to me here, Jeff, on a tweet, refugees seek refuge. So when it's safe, they no longer need refuge. So they should return home. And that's what Frank from Mansfield says. What's wrong with what Frank says, Jeff?
So you essentially, what you're doing, you're kicking people who have been working hard. It could be myself, for instance. I'm not a refugee. It could be someone like myself who worked very hard, and after 5 years, you essentially kicking them out. Is that correct?
Well, the proposal is that people are granted refugee status, and if after 5 years the country that they've come from is now deemed to be safe, they would be returned. That is the proposal, Jeff, that is here from the Home Office. If you disagree with that, tell me why.
I disagree with that because if I was in someone else's shoes, okay, let's put it this way. So say for instance, I want to go to Spain. And I was there for 5 years as a refugee. Now, what gives me the right, or gives someone else the right, should I say, to send me back to England after 5 years? Now, put it the other way around. Surely people who come to this country and have been here for 5 years, then from a moral point of view, that's what I'm talking about, a moral point of view.
No, and Jeff, I accept, Jeff, I accept that this is much more of a moral debate than it is a political debate. But what qualifications would you have to be a refugee coming from Salford? Tell me.
Well, I deliver fruit and veg myself for a living, so it wouldn't apply to me necessarily.
No, it wouldn't apply to you, would it? No.
Well,
no.
I hope not, unless a war breaks out.
I don't think so. I mean, is it, Jeff, is it the element of compulsion that worries you in this?
Compulsion, dictatorship, potentially. I feel... Do you have any morals, Nigel, is the question then I'll put to you.
Well, Jeff, I understand the argument you make, absolutely, and I counter it by saying, if the country is safe, and if 70% of those who have been granted refugee status are young men, surely don't the countries that they've come from, that might have been through wars and strife, don't they need their young men back?
What about if these young men have come with their families? What's the situation in that point of view?
Well, in some cases, Jeff, in some cases that will be the case, but in most cases it isn't. Jeff, I take you've got a very principled view here, which is if we've offered somebody refugee status, then that should be that, and they should not be compelled to leave. And I get that, and it's a highly principled point, and there's nothing wrong with it. However, from what I'm seeing tonight on this show, a majority of people think actually the Home Office position is perfectly reasonable because being a refugee means you take refuge, and that implies that it's temporary and not permanent. Jeff, I thank you very much for your thoughts and your call. And I go to Andrew in Wandsworth and I ask him, is it beyond basic morality to conduct a safe return review?
Evening, Nigel. Yeah, I think it's more than fair, to be honest. More than fair. As you were saying just before, a refugee, I mean, I was looked up the definition of it, and it's the state of being safe or sheltered from pursuit, danger, or difficulty. So after 5 years, after a review, if it's safe to go back, then why not? Well, what's the reason to stay here anymore? Unless, like some people have said, you put down roots, but I think that should be part of like a means test. What what those refugees contributed family-wise, work-wise? Have they paid into the healthcare system, our tax?
That's where it gets. But that's where it gets tough, Andrew, isn't it? That's where it gets tough, and it gets very subjective. But you know, I mean, clearly, if somebody's come and they've come from Syria, for argument's sake, and they've got married and had 2 kids in that 5 years, then it's quite tricky, isn't it?
It is. But like you said, you have this mostly like 70% of young males coming across, etc. And it's like, well, why aren't they returning once it's safe? Why are they staying here unless it's...
Okay, so Andrew, would you accept that there would be exceptions here, where people could argue, look, I really have put down roots, without a doubt?
There's never clear black and white. There's always grey areas, etc., and it's never always as clear-cut as people wish it to be, but that's the way it is. But I think the review itself is fair. After 5 years, have a look at the state of the refugees' country, and then go from there.
So, Andrew, a fair and sensible thing to do, but there will be exceptions, yeah?
Definitely.
Thank you very much indeed for your call. I get here on Twitter, but what about other refugees who are in danger? People need to leave so others can have their turn. Well, I think there is a point about that. And we said that earlier, didn't we? That maybe our hearts are not as open as they used to be because we feel people have been taking the mickey. Young men should return home as soon as a war is over to help rebuild their country. No ifs, no buts. Hi, Nigel. I'm an immigrant. I support you. The UK has destabilised countries such as Iraq, Libya, and made life hell for people. Therefore, the UK must be held responsible, and refugees should be allowed. We have to care for our fellow humans. Peter, well, Peter, we do. The question is how many and for how long? And I guess that's where the Home Office are kind of taking this now, because they're beginning to say for how long. And if it's safe, what's the problem? If refugees who've been here and go back somewhere safe, that perhaps makes room for more people who are in short-term trouble. I'd like to take it a stage further, says someone here, and assess on a yearly basis. Gosh. Thomas says to me on Facebook, Nigel, would you happily be sent back to a country the Home Office deems safe, but you didn't? Well, Thomas, I absolutely accept that is a degree of subjectivity. We can't get round that, or at least I can't get round that. And Peter says a refugee should be a temporary status only. Ray says, surely a genuine refugee would be glad of the first safe country they landed in. It's a slightly separate argument, that, Ray, in that a lot of people have been coming into Britain through Calais claiming refugee status, when in reality, under the rules, internationally, you should claim it in the first safe country you come to. As ever, a complex subject. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, live from Brussels. It's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Theresa May is ruling out TV debates, and now Jeremy Corbyn says he won't do it if she doesn't. Is it important that we see the leaders facing each other and the public?
Clive Bull on LBC.
What do you think of when someone says the word used? Old-fashioned? Out of tune? A bit scratched? Something past its best. Chances are you're not thinking of a Mercedes-Benz. And certainly not one of the latest models. Think Mercedes-Benz approved used. Suddenly, there's a lot more meaning to that little word. Visit your local retailer to find your used car today, and you'll see what I mean.
I like the way you work it.
Mercedes-Benz approved used. Used, but not what you're used to.
Hello to spring markets booming with laughter and jokes that leave you smiling days after. Say hello to something new today at helloyoudating.com.
So, you're interested in building a property development business, but feeling unsure about the tax and legal implications and the potential pitfalls. You might have questions like, what business structure do I need? Should I incorporate? What about VAT and stamp duty? Or you may want to know how to minimise taxation on profits and learn about inheritance tax issues. For help, speak to Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for property businesses. Visit barnesrofe.com/radio.
Oh, the garden's an absolute mess. It's my turn to have the cross-stitch crew round for tea and Battenberg. I'll have to get a landscape gardener in and a wildlife expert. It's a jungle out there. We could be eaten alive by those deadly flutterbugs. Oh, relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Marvellous local tradespeople who've been tried, tested and reviewed. All specialists in their areas, from landscape gardening to pest control. Oh, visit trustatrader.com!
Become a local hero like Chris. He's an electrician. He joined Local Heroes, an online service that matches customers with trusted plumbers, electricians and heating engineers.
Local Heroes send me the jobs and I take the ones that work for me. Plus it's really easy to use and free to join.
Chris is right. There's no sign-up fee. Dodgy lights, leaky taps, no heating. There's a local hero for that, and you could be one of them. Visit localheroes.com and join hundreds of trusted tradesmen. Local Heroes, a British Gas innovation.
The Multi-York Spring Sofa Sale ends Bank Holiday Monday. Get up to 40% off plus an extra 10% off everything. In-store and at multiyork.co.uk.
With up to 10,000 cars in stock, buying a car is easy at Car Giant.
It's how London buys its cars. Car Giant.
This is LBC, live from Brussels, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
50 refugee groups are up in arms. They say it's beyond basic morality for the Home Office to conduct a safe return review for refugees who've been here for 5 years. Meaning, if we've granted someone refuge in this country and they've been accepted, after 5 years, the Home Office are going to see if the place they've come from is safe or not. And most of you, so far, think that's a perfectly reasonable policy because what we're doing is offering refuge, and a lot of those people, particularly young men, should go back and help rebuild the country. Others warn there'll be exceptions because people have put down roots and they've got married, and some are worried about the element of compulsion. But I think the Home Office actually are beginning to get with the times and catch up, in my view, with public mood. I wonder what Rory and Holborn makes of this debate. Rory, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. Hope you're well. Nigel,
I'm doing my best.
Nigel, I think the Home Office stance is perfectly reasonable.
Yep.
I think, you know, that they should maybe go a little bit further and with organisations such as the United Nations, not accept refugees at all unless they've already been denied asylum by a country close. So in the case of what's going on in Syria, if Turkey or Lebanon, or Jordan deny them asylum, then we should look at accepting these asylum claims. But I don't think we should be accepting them full stop. The only time we should really accept asylum seekers is if there's a massive civil war in the middle of France, you know. But other than that, I don't think we should be accepting asylum seekers full stop.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, Rory, I do actually think that one of the big factors in the Brexit vote last year was Mrs. Merkel saying, back in 2015, we can accept as many, we can cope. As many of you that want to come, please come. And then when we saw that she was then trying to divvy up the numbers amongst the other EU members, and we realised that in a few short years, they'd all have EU passports and then all legally be able to come to Britain, I think this did have an effect on how we voted in that referendum. Rory, I mean, do you look back at our history, though, and think we've been a country that actually has got a pretty fine record on this?
We have. We're a very, very generous country, especially the amount of foreign aid we give out every year. But I think there's other reasons that they should go to those safe countries, because those countries are going to be culturally similar to them, and they're more likely to integrate. If you're from Syria, you're more likely to integrate in Turkey, integrate in Jordan. Whereas if you come to the UK, it's very different, and you're not going to integrate into our society, and it does cause problems.
It does cause problems, and perhaps some of those crime figures I read out earlier from Germany suggest there are problems. Rory, making the point very clearly, people should claim refugee status in the first safe country they come to, and if those countries culturally are similar, then so much the better. I wonder what Patrick and Lee makes of all of that. Patrick, good evening. No, I can't get Patrick. Moses in Bedford. Moses, tell me, how do you feel about the Home Office potentially toughening up our policy and saying after 5 years, if where you've come from is safe, you should go back?
Nigel, I'm a first-time caller. Hi. I think
Good
the
evening.
Home Office is the Home Office has been lazy. Wars don't last for less than 5 years. I came from a West African country that had civil war for 15 years. I've been in this country now for 12 years. I was brought here by the British government. I didn't ask for it. And since I've been here, I've done fantastically well for myself and my family. And I just think the Home Office is trying to get the British people to do their job for them. Wars don't last for less than 5 years. It's well known.
That depends.
Somalia has been fighting for how long now?
Yeah. So Moses, where did you come from?
Liberia.
Liberia. And what would the situation be in Liberia today?
We had it's a lot better now, but we had a civil war for 14 years. As you know, it was well documented. There was a lot of tribal issue, and we had a lot of different governments. It was not a stable country. It's a small country in population terms, but it is still, the struggle still goes on because there's no institution to take people back. Do you know what I mean? It's very tribal. Go on.
Yeah. So Moses, would Liberia be considered safe today or not?
It will be considered in some areas. Now, if you come from the north side of Liberia, it's not safe. If you come from, say, Monrovia, the capital city, it will consider it safe. Now, to take somebody after 5 years to drop them in Liberia, bear in mind, Nigel, there's no institutions. You don't have the security system you've got in place here where you can go into a police station and report. It doesn't work like that. And
no, so Moses, if you get a knock on the door tonight, Moses, from the Home Office, and they say, Moses, old son, you've had your chips in Britain, it's time to go back to Liberia, you would not be very happy, would you?
No, as long as they tell me where to go, which area, which street, which house to go, then I'll be all right.
Okay. Would you? Okay. Well, it's not going to happen to you, Moses. But you're very open-minded about this, so it's a very, very helpful contribution, and you sound very jolly and very happy. So life has worked out pretty well here, yeah.
So one thing also I want to add, leave in your country where you're born and come into a foreign country. Not the easy thing to do. You leave a lot of what you know back there. A lot of your friends, like you, Nigel, you will not leave Kent for anywhere. You've been in America, you've been in France, you always come back to Kent, aren't you?
Yeah, that's true.
Where your friends are, that's where your family are. Yeah. There's nothing like your home. And it's hard to make that decision. And to come and stay here for years and not see people you went to school with is very hard, very hard.
I bet it is. Moses, a beautiful phone call. Thank you very much indeed. Now, Patrick in Lee spurned me last time, but I'm told he's now ready. Patrick, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. Can you hear me?
I can, far away. What do you think?
What it is, my parents came here in the 1980s as refugees from Vietnam, and they had 6 children. Well, I remember growing up, my parents claimed benefits. We got a free home, and the government was paying for 6 children, paid for all our schooling. But now, those 6 children that she had, I pay, all of us are working, we all pay taxes. I pay more tax in 1 month than most people pay in a year. I run a business that employs 20 people. If you were to send us back after 5 years, because Vietnam was a safe country after 5 years of us being in this country, you wouldn't have the benefit of people like myself paying for the system in a country that we've grown up to love. And I do...
Patrick, I get that. Yeah. Patrick, I get that. And I think particularly about the Ugandan Asians, the people that Amin was going to kill. And 28,000 of them came to Britain back in 74-5, and they have been, economically, the single most successful migrant group that has ever come to Britain. They have done phenomenally. They've spawned business tycoons, millionaires, sports players, members of parliament, and goodness knows what else. And you're right. This can work hugely to our advantage. But what's it done after Amin had gone? What's it done for that country?
What I think is that you're skewing it out as well, because you've obviously given us the statistics. Only 1% of these in the German population are, known criminals and things like that. But what's happening is that we're allowing that 1% to be stereotyped, and that whole of the 99%, We wouldn't do that with any other type of people. Yes, there are people abusing the system and criminals. Yeah, send those home. I don't care about them. But they don't represent
Well, I did try,
99% of people.
Patrick, I did try to be absolutely fair with those German crime statistics, but do understand why people are worried about it, and do understand why people are worried about the growth of Islamic terrorism too. Patrick, thank you very much indeed. You're the final caller this evening. My final thought on this is that actually, with a safe returns policy and with a system that deported failed asylum seekers at the time of the application rather than the farce that we've currently got. Actually, if both of those things worked, we would find as a country a lot more room in our hearts to give people genuine refuge. Actually, we could help an awful lot more people if this system came into being. And yes, I completely accept there'll be lots of exceptions. I completely understand that it'll be a subjective view of the Home Office and it won't be perfect. But I do also feel that so many of those countries who've lost their brightest, ablest young people, and without them, communities left behind, you know, of the old, the weak, and surely that can't make a great deal of sense. Now, tonight in London, Theresa May is hosting talks with Michel Barnier and with the European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker. They're having a working dinner at Downing Street. Gosh, she'll be shocked. Oh, Jean-Claude Juncker enjoys a glass or two, I can tell you. Mrs May has greeted the European Commission President with a kiss on both cheeks as he arrived at number 10. And this is going to be very interesting because, as you know, they want a massive Brexit bill from us. I hope the Prime Minister says no. We will see. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show. I'm back tomorrow night in London from 7. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins. But up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you. So Theresa May is ruling out TV debates. And now Jeremy Corbyn says he's not going to do it either if she won't do it. So does it matter? Is it important?